Hello, Internet. This is Karina, and welcome to K-Chats. If you're liking our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Talia Lepson, who is a student attorney at the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies and also a JD candidate at the University of California, Hastings College of Law. Talia, how are you? And welcome.
Hi, Karina. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing well.
Great. So let's get right into it. Could you tell us a little bit about the work you do at the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies and what led to your interest in immigration?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a participant in the Refugee and Human Rights Clinic through the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies at the University of Hastings, University of California, Hastings College of the Law. I decided to enroll in the clinic because I do have an interest in pursuing a career in immigration defense and specifically helping folks seek asylum. So this semester, I work with two other students and our supervising attorney, and we are working with an asylum-seeking client. She's going through the affirmative asylum process, so we have been conducting interviews with her on a weekly basis and working with her directly to build her asylum application from the inception. And her asylum interview is coming up. It's scheduled to take place in mid-May. So we're really excited for the finalization of that process.
So there's a sense that we've kind of moved into a new era of immigration now that we are in the Biden administration. However, Title 42 is still a big issue. So Title 42 is a COVID-related policy which was implemented under the Trump administration and has been maintained by the Biden administration. There's been a lot of pushback from progressive groups who are otherwise largely in support of this White House. And you've also expressed concerns about how the policy disproportionately impacts Black refugees. So could you talk a little bit more about why the policy is so controversial and how it is disproportionately impacting Black refugees?
Sure, absolutely, Karina. So the previous administration, the Trump administration, really at the behest of white nationalist and white supremacist Stephen Miller, weaponized Title 42 against immigrants. The Trump administration essentially used the COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext to turn away migrants seeking a better life, as well as asylum seekers fleeing persecution. And let's be clear, these aren't largely violent, dangerous individuals. These are individuals fleeing extreme poverty and violence, and they want nothing besides a chance to live in a place where they can provide for themselves and their families and exist free from the type of violence that they experience back in their countries of origin. And unfortunately, the Biden administration has continued to weaponize this white nationalist, xenophobic policy against migrants and asylum seekers. CDC doctors and experts have categorically disagreed with this weaponization of Title 42 from the jump. They know that Title 42 has done absolutely nothing to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and that it's merely xenophobia masquerading as sensible public health policy, and yet the policy still remains. The US government has historically painted immigrants, especially immigrants of color, as diseased individuals who pose like a serious health and safety risk to the general American population. And let's be clear, this is absolutely false. The US government has historically used this line of thinking to enact anti-immigrant policies like the Page Act and the Chinese Exclusion Act. Title 42 is really merely a continuation of a long political history of the US government labeling immigrants as dirty and diseased, and then using that as a pretext to deny them entry into the United States.
So last week at a White House press conference, the White House was pressed about Title 42, and Jen Psaki basically said that they don't have a timeline or any goals related to lifting Title 42. So if you had the opportunity to speak directly to President Biden and Vice President Harris, what would your pitch be to them to end this policy?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say that Title 42 is causing a new wave of family separation at the border. And that was one of the core messages that I would say the American public despised in the previous administration. The idea of family separation really nauseated a large swath of the American public and painted the Trump administration as particularly cruel when it comes to immigration policy. But Title 42 is causing a new wave of the sort of family separation that we saw in the previous administration. Parents are aware that the border is essentially closed to them, right? And they're making the excruciatingly painful decision to send their children across the border without them. And federal law provides for the resettlement of unaccompanied minors outside of Title 42, but there's absolutely no reason why children should be funneled through the refugee resettlement process when they have parents who are able and willing to take care of them. And the only reason why these parents can't come to the United States and take care of their children is because the Biden administration refuses to end this racist and xenophobic Title 42 policy. Additionally, Biden's weaponization of Title 42 has also disproportionately affected Black immigrants. In the past 8 weeks alone, the Biden administration has expelled upwards of 1,400 Haitians under Title 42. And it's truly heartbreaking. They're expelling families, pregnant women, and infants as young as 1 month old. It's also worth noting that there's a violent political uprising currently happening in Haiti right now. And this violent uprising is fueling patterns of migration into the United States. So the Biden administration is essentially telling folks fleeing a violent political uprising that the border is closed and that they're up shit creek. No formal screenings, no credible fear interviews, nothing.
So let's switch gears a little bit because last week, in response to the surge of migrants coming in, the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act was introduced. It's already been met with a lot of opposition and concerns from humanitarian groups. What are your thoughts on this legislation, which is a response to the surge of migrants at the border?
Right. So broadly speaking, I would say there's bipartisan consensus in Congress that our current immigration system is deeply flawed, right? People on both sides of the aisle can see this and they understand it. So Senators Kirsten Sinema and John Cornyn and Representatives Henry Cuellar and Tony Gonzalez introduced something called the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act to get the ball rolling on some sort of immigration reform. But what's deeply disturbing about the bill is that it takes no, and I mean zero, meaningful steps to reform our broken immigration system. This bill more or less just puts a veneer of justice and due process onto what is little more than a streamlined deportation process. The bill provides for substantial government resources that the US government could easily use to create a more humane, fair, and efficient system for evaluating migrants and refugees, but instead, the bill moves the same broken immigration process that we already have farther away from legal service providers, attorneys, and other community resources just so that the government can facilitate fast removal orders at the border. And really in doing so, the bill gives even more power to CBP, Customs and Border Protection, which is an agency with a disgusting history of abusing and mistreating migrants in its custody. And we can continue to break this down even a little further. So basically, the bill would rush the initial steps of the asylum process, all at the expense of meaningful access to counsel and due process. Under this bill, asylum seekers would need to receive comprehensive legal orientations and be fully prepped for their initial credible fear interviews, which is like the first step that individuals seeking asylum undergo when they arrive at the border. And all of this would need to happen within 72 hours of their arrival to the United States. And I cannot stress enough how impossible all of this is. There's just no way to provide clients with the level of legal representation that they need and deserve within a 72-hour time frame. It's just not possible.
Well, that leads us to our last question, which, so you're actually from Oakland, California, which is the birthplace of our vice president, who has actually been tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in Latin America. So before we go, what would you say to Vice President Harris? What would you like her to keep in mind as she tackles this thorny issue?
Sure. I do want to say, first of all, I was born and raised in Boston and moved out to the Bay about 5 years ago. So I've only been living in Oakland since 2016. I know that's a big issue for folks from the Bay and other people pretending they're from here when we're not. So I just want to preface that. But what I would say to Vice President Harris is that we know from years of failed pilot programs and rocket dockets in immigration court that these initiatives, like this bill, lead to massive due process violations with few, if any, gains in efficiency. So rather than proposing similar initiatives and magically expecting different outcomes, we should be utilizing government resources to engage in meaningful reform that prioritizes due process rights for migrants and asylum seekers, as well as provides for universal access to counsel. Something that folks know within the legal community and the immigration rights community, but is less well known outside of that circuit, is that there's no guaranteed right to counsel for immigrants in proceedings. There's not. And whether or not a client has access to counsel is really make or break for their case a lot of the times. So this bill basically would result in like unnecessary detention of unaccompanied children in ways where we could really be using government resources that this bill provides for to provide universal access to counsel for immigrants in proceedings, and to think creatively about how we can reform the system in a way that makes things more efficient and makes things more just and humane for immigrants at the border.
Well, we'll leave it right there. Thank you so much for those great insights and for sharing your legal expertise with us. We definitely look forward to staying up to date with this topic and seeing what happens in regards to policy. So thank you again for joining us. And to our viewers, don't forget to like and subscribe and keep watching K-Chats and Meet La Prensa. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.